This is the Horse Radio Network. This is episode 270 of Horse Tip Daily, a different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you one day at a time. Today's tip is sponsored by Kentucky Performance Products. Visit them at kppusa.com. Enjoy today's tip. Howdy, Glenn the Geek back with you from Lexington, Kentucky, horse capital of the world. And you're listening to Horse Tip Daily. Well, today we have back with us Rick Gore from Rick Gore Horsemanship. As I've said before, Rick is a trainer, a clinician, and he's an all-around horseman and a good guy. He's all about the horse and teaching you about yourself. He answers questions about horse problems and issues on several websites and writes articles for a few others. He's done a number of tips with us, and you can go back to horsetipdaily.com and use the drop-down menu on the left side of the page to look up all his tips and listen to them all at once if you'd like. And we're going to get to Rick here in just a moment after this word from Kentucky Performance Products, and we'll be back with Rick Gore's tip. Choosing a supplement can be confusing. How do you know which ones are right for your horse? Kentucky Performance Products will simplify your search for effective, research-proven supplements that meet the challenges of today's horses. And this week's highlight product is Contribute Omega-3 Fatty Acid Supplement. The properties of omega-3 fatty acids benefit every system in your horse's body. Contribute improves breeding efficiency in mares and stallions, maintains soundness, and protects joints from damaging inflammation, sustains a strong immune response in horses of all ages, and decreases the levels of inflammation in your horse's body by sustaining adequate omega-3 fatty acid levels. Learn more about Contribute Omega-3 Fatty Acid Supplement and all the other products at kppusa.com. That's Kentucky Performance Products at kppusa.com. Well, hi, Rick, and welcome back to Horse Tip Daily.
Hey, howdy. Glad to be here.
That's good to have you. And, it's always fun to talk to you from out there in sunny California. We're going to talk, we always do very practical tips with you, and I love talking about this stuff because having owned a boarding stable for many, many years with 25, 30 horses, and having had teenagers of all sorts go through our barns over the years, the topic you're going to talk about today is a pet peeve of ours. So go ahead.
All right. Well,
and it's something we all like to do.
Yep. And horses, I think, find it a pet peeve, too, because they really we're going to talk about kissing and clicking too much to horses. And I guess, just as kids, when you see horses or you call a dog, or we're always talking to our birds, our pets, we want to make some sort of verbal. Humans are pretty verbal. And horses are actually really nonverbal. They're all about body language and ear position and head position and tail flashiness and how they're facing. So they talk with their body. You don't hear horses talking in pasture a lot. So as humans, we tend to talk a lot, and we want to verbalize what we're doing. And so when we see a horse and we get to a horse, we always want to click or kiss or, come here, buddy, come here. And when you're dealing with horses and training them a lot, verbal cues, since they don't have a complete vocabulary in a large language, they learn a very few words, and they associate those words with body language and other body cues. So most people will train their horses, and I say most of the ones that are in, if they're just working with their horses to Western or trail riding, et cetera, I'm sure there's some disciplines that don't use it. But a lot of horse riders will train their horses is kiss to canter or click to trot. So, and if you go to a lot of trainers, you talk to a lot of people, they will tell you only click when you want your horse to trot and only kiss when you want your horse to canter. So the horse will learn whenever he hears those two words, he associates that with moving. And you teach that when you round pen your horse or when you're on his back or when you're lunging him. If I'm walking my horse, I tell him to walk, and then I give him the signal to walk. And if I want him to trot, I tell him to trot. I pick up my body movement. I get a little bigger. I put a little more pressure, and I go trot. And pretty soon, I don't have to say trot. I can go, and he will trot. But if I use clicking for everything, come here, buddy. Come here, you want a treat? Get away from me. Shoo. Then he starts ignoring the clicking, and it defeats the purpose of using it as a verbal cue. And again, like you said, teenagers and young kids, a lot of people think they got to kiss the horse and come here, buddy, come here, I'll give you a carrot, I'll give you a treat. And then the horse learns, if a lot of people do that, to ignore the kiss. And when you got a good verbal cue that the person who owns a horse is actually trained and wants their horse to use that cue, then you don't want to overuse it. You don't want to desensitize the horse because, all horses work on pressure and release, and they work on desensitizing or sensitizing. If I want my horse to move and I swing a rope, I am sensitizing him to move away from the rope pressure. If I want to have him desensitize to the rope, I will have him stand and I'll throw the rope over his back. I will run it through his legs. I'll rub it over his face. Then I'm desensitizing. So you want to do both on most everything because sometimes, I don't want my horse to pay attention to my legs when I get on him. But I do want him to pay attention to my legs when I squeeze for him to go forward or I move my legs forward for him to go in reverse. So you have to desensitize and sensitize. People don't realize when they talk to a horse a lot or kiss or click a lot, you're desensitizing your horse to verbal cues. You're desensitizing them to those words that actually mean something. And that's the thing with kissing and clicking. So if people need to be aware of that when they're walking up to a horse or when they're around horses, you want to be quiet. If you see good horsemen working with horses, they're usually pretty quiet. They don't talk because it's all about looks and glances and subtle movements
and body language,
and body pressure and position. Absolutely. And there's no verbal in it. I mean, sometimes people will hear me grunt at a horse, and I'll grunt because when a stallion or somebody in a herd and a natural wild horses, you'll hear horses make these threatening sounds when they're irritated or they're upset. And if a horse learns, and my horse always know if I grunt at them, they're probably going to get corrected. If they're doing something wrong, that's a sound they don't hear any other time unless they're about to get corrected. So that's a verbal correction for me. But if I did that every time I saw him, he would learn to ignore that, and it would mean nothing to him. And that's the key on kissing and clicking. If they mean something, you only use them in connection with the cue and what they mean. And if you use it for everything or you're always doing it, you teach a horse to ignore it, and then you lose the benefit of having it as a verbal cue. Great.
Well, where can they find out more about you and what you do?
They can go to my website, thinklikeahorse.org. I'm in Northern California, and they can get a bunch of tips. I also have about 140 videos on YouTube that talk about horsemanship, horse behavior, herd behavior, feeding in the pasture, things that I think just owning a horse, just more basic stuff about owning a horse and developing your relationship and understanding horses better.
And I will say there's a ton of information on your website, and it's free. You can go there and you can just read it, and that's a little different than a lot of the others out there. So definitely check it out at thinklikeahorse.org. Thank you, Rick. We'll have you on again.
All right, partner. You have a good day.
Well, we thank Rick for taking time out of his schedule out there to join us on Horse Tip Daily. And, of course, you can hear all his tips, as I said, over on the website. You can also find all the experts. You can search by category of tip. You can search by their name. You can search any which way you want at horsetipdaily.com. And we appreciate you joining us here. We appreciate all our listeners, and we'd love to hear from you. When do you listen to the show? Drop me an email at Glenn with 2 N's at horseradionetwork.com. And don't forget to check out all the other great shows on the network at horseradionetwork.com. I'll be back again tomorrow with another new expert and a different horse tip. Until then, stay safe, everyone.